Hi, everybody. In this video, I want to introduce you to the idea of recording a macro. So what a macro does is it allows us to basically program in Excel a series of steps that we can then save as a single key sort of. So this is particularly helpful for a longer sequence of steps that we're going to do repeatedly over and over again. We can save it instead as an additional sort of button, or we could use a picture to save it, or just kind of program that recording in so that we don't have to keep doing the same process over and over repeatedly. So to do that, the first thing I need to do is add a new tab up top here. So I'm going to go to my ribbon and I'm just going to right click on the ribbon anywhere that's blank and click customize the ribbon. And when you do that on the right here, you're going to see there's a tab or a box for developer. And you're going to want to check that and click OK. And once you do that, you will see that it opens up top here and you have that new tab. So you do need to install that the first time you use it, and then it should be in play. Now, for the macro as well here, there are ways to actually type in and use programming language to record a macro that way. But for most people, unless you're pretty savvy with programming or you know the VBA language, which is what Excel is using here, it may be pretty difficult. So for most of us, recording is really nice because what happens is Excel records your steps, saves it as programming language, and then allows you to use those steps again. So it just makes it really easy for the user. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to take you through a very simple macro. So I'm up here on the developer tab. I'm going to go over to record macro. And then you're going to see it's going to let me actually name this. You do want to name it so that when you refer to it later, you actually remember what it was. So I'm going to follow along with your text and we're going to name this as show dashboard. You can save it in different places. If you want to add a shortcut key, you can. Just be careful. The shortcut keys will overwrite any pre-programmed key. So if you did like Control-C, it would overwrite the copy key. So you just want to be careful there. We're going to just save it in this workbook, but again, you can save it other places. And then you can just give a brief description. So we want to display the contents of the dashboard. And when I'm ready to start recording, I'm going to hit OK. Now, Excel is going to start recording my steps. And what I want to do first is click on the sheet that I want to be active in. Even though my dashboard sheet is already active, we're still going to do that process because you could be on a different sheet later on. So I'm going to click the dashboard sheet here. And then I'm going to click cell A1 because that's where I would like my mouse to go whenever I use this macro. And that's actually all I'm going to do. I'm going to hit stop recording. So now what did we actually do here? Let me go to a different sheet. So let's go to donations, for instance. And I want to use my macro. Now, again, I know that we can just click back and forth between the dashboard. You're probably saying, Professor Pollard, what a silly thing to do here. But again, one reason is because a lot of our macros may be longer and multiple steps. So I'm trying to just show you a very beginning example here. But two, not everybody is as Excel savvy. So after you have your macro, you can actually embed that into a button or into a shape so that your colleagues or your clients can actually just click that button in Excel, and you'll see that in the next video, and the macro will be performed. So it just makes it really easy for other people to use Excel. So for now, just to use my macro, you go back to your developer tab and you go over here to macros, and then you select which one you want to use. Here I just have one that I'm working with, and I hit run, and it performs the steps. So it took me back to the dashboard page, and it took me to cell A1, like I recorded. And again, I can try it on a different sheet as well. I'm going to hit my macro button, and again, I'm just going to hit run, and it's going to perform those two steps. So my step was to activate the dashboard sheet and click cell A1. And those two pieces go ahead and get recorded here. The other thing I do want to show you is how to save a macro-enabled workbook. So once you're done this, you do want to save it. So usually what your book recommends is making sure your macro runs as you want and then save. So kind of save your workbook before you try to run a macro, run it, make sure it works okay, and then save it again. And then that way, if you make a mistake, you can just kind of clear out and start where you had left off before. So don't save until you know your macro makes sense. And then also save right before you try to create it so you don't mess anything else up as you're working through these. So once I'm ready and I want to save this, I'm going to go to File. And I'm going to go to Save As. Let's see, I'm going to save it in whatever folder I like. All right. And what I want to just change this to is I want to change this to Excel macro enabled workbook here. So I don't save it as a regular workbook. I'm going to save it as a macro enabled workbook. And that will change the ending of my, my file just a little bit, like how it's saved. And then I can go ahead and click Save. And it will make that change. So that is the one thing you do want to make sure you do after you have created a macro. You do want to save that macro so that you can use it again later on.